Carolina, the national championship, basketball, and much, much more with him. We'll even probably have Phil jump in here in just a little bit as well. We're going to try to add somebody later to the program if we can. Again, things are a little wonky. The weather is coming. Some of you probably already seeing snow across the Palmetto State. And if you are, enjoy it. We're looking forward to ours getting to my home here over the next 12 hours or so. With all that said, good morning, AJ, the pride of Hampton County. What's up, brother?
Good morning. Good morning. Just trying to stay warm here on Snow Watch in Columbia, South Carolina. I think it's kind of crazy to see that it's 25 degrees right now, but it seems like the whole state's on Snow Watch, and it's, the Low Country may get this more than the Columbia and Midlands area.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. We haven't had significant snowfall. I think it was early January of 2018, so 7 years, and we had 5.5, 6 inches, I believe, then at my house. I think Columbia was right around there, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know if anybody remembers the snow of 2010. I was still living in Columbia at that point in time, and we got a bunch of it. And back then, we were all young and dumb, so we just had a bunch of booze and ran around outside, threw snowballs at cars and stuff like that. But anyways, last night, Alex, we're going to get to a bunch of Carolina stuff here in just a little bit, and some college football topics that will kind of begin to graze. I'll get your thoughts on those as someone who covers the sport of college football, and then throughout the week we'll pose these questions to the rest of the folks that will be around here. For those wondering, by the way, at some point in time this week, and maybe today, we'll have John Strickland in. Mike will join us later on this week. Derek Scott will be here. Ashley Chastain, or Ashley Woodard now, the head softball coach up in Columbia for your Gamecocks, who have some high expectations. They'll be joining us. Rafael Esparza will be here this week. JC will join me tomorrow. Looking forward to getting him in. We'll have Matt at some point. Will Crow and Stuart Lake are still both on deck this week as well. And at some point in time in the next few days, we'll also get Brad Crawford in and talk plenty of college football with him. So we're certainly looking forward to that. If you happen to miss our episode yesterday of Inside the Gamecocks, the morning show, Shane Beamer spent about a half an hour here. And we had a bunch of fun with him. We'll touch on some of that with Alex too. But last night, 34-23, the final score. Ohio State, the most talented roster in the country. Alex had a couple of hiccups during the regular season, but they got hot in the playoffs. It showed, and I think you could argue, regardless of record, finishing at 14-2, not undefeated, but they were the best team in the country, and they won the national championship.
Yeah, when you going into the season, Ohio State seemed to have the best roster of what they were able to put in together in the offseason, and it showed for most of the season. Then they had that Michigan game where you're just wondering what's going on. Are they even going to make the playoff? And credit them. I mean, Ryan Day and the staff, they helped that team turn around and kind of flush that loss, and they really just went on a run, a dominant run through the Big Ten championship game or through the playoffs. And it was, last night they dominated most of that game. At Notre Dame, credit to them, they battled and got back into it, but once they missed that field goal, which, I don't think they should have kicked the field goal, just go for it at that point. But, once they missed that field goal, it was the comeback was over, and Ohio State kind of just ran the clock out. And Jeremiah Smith showed why he's going to be one of the best players in the country. That guy's awesome. And it was a fun game to watch. And, credit to Ohio State, they found a way to finally put it together and win. And big win for Ryan Day with, all the pressure it seemed he was on this season, and especially after the Michigan loss, that they're able to get it done.
I picked Notre Dame to win the game yesterday. I thought the magic would continue. It did not. Will Howard was scorching hot throughout the playoffs. His completion percentage was somewhere around like 75 in the 4 games that he played. They did run him more last night, 16 carries for 57 yards, and he was putting the ball in the breadbasket. But the reason that Ohio State won the game, we talk about Ohio, the most talented roster, more talented roster, however you want to phrase that. They had the best player on the field. And the play call at the end of the game by Chip Kelly to, okay, all right, we got third down here. I would say, 9 out of 10 offensive coordinators in that moment are just trying to get the first down, or at least, maybe run enough time off the clock to where you can stretch this thing out and end the ball game. And I'm not so sure, maybe I missed it, but I'm not so sure if they spoke about how much they spoke about it after the game. I ended up going to bed. But between Ryan Day and Chip Kelly saying, no, let's just win the game. if we need to pick up a first down, let's give the ball to the best player on the field, or at least try to. And they did it, and it worked. It totally caught Notre Dame off guard. So it was a hell of a coaching move. They had a hot quarterback and the best wide receiver in college football. Bam, and that's how you do it.
Yeah, as you mentioned, put the ball in your best player's hands and let things happen. That's what happened. I mean, as you mentioned, Will Howard was on fire last night and really throughout the playoff run. He was key for Ohio State in their dominant run. And, they put the ball in their best hands and let those players go play. And that's what happened. I mean, as I mentioned, Jeremiah Smith, that guy could probably be drafted like a first-round pick this year if he could go. And so, they just found a way to, they kept their foot on the gas when, as you mentioned, they could have just kind of tried to get the first down and maybe run some more clock, and playing away. But they put the ball, found their best players, and that's key to the win.
Well, now we enter the offseason here, and there's going to be there from a national standpoint, there are so many different things to talk about. We'll get to South Carolina here in a little bit. You got the early rankings and all that stuff, and what does all that mean, et cetera, et cetera. And I've done a little bit of research, by the way. But I do think that something else has entered the chat as far as how do we make college football, which I think is the best product out there, right? That's what I think. Obviously the NFL has the highest ratings of anything, so on and so forth. I get it. But college football, I believe, is the best product. I think a lot of people believe is the best product. The conversation has generally been around the playoff, and while it has continued to advance and better itself, there are still things that are of concern. The seeding is concerning. How large do we get this thing? We've had all these conversations. But last night, as I sat there and watched the game, it really grabbed hold of me that the timing of the national championship game, and I'm not sure what the ratings will end up being, could not have been worse. Because you have two of the brands in the sport. Everybody loves to hate both of those teams. Coming into the game somehow, though, Notre Dame became kind of America's sweetheart in this national championship game. But they are two of the most iconic brands in college football. So imagine if that game was played last night with two brands that are not iconic. Okay? Imagine if that was your South Carolina Gamecocks and name somebody, Oklahoma State. They're brands to us because we're in the thick of it, but they're not two of the iconic brands in college football. So may not draw the casual fan who's sitting on the sidelines, right? So this game is played last night, almost 2 months after the end of the college football season, the regular season, which ended November the 30th. Then you had a conference championship week. And then you had bowl games and stuff, and then you had the beginning of the playoffs, and it stretched itself out a month. It was on the Monday following the divisional rounds in the NFL, which you're not competing with those games. I've always thought the national championship being played on a Monday night is ridiculous anyways. And I know that they're talking about TV ratings. Okay, last night it went up against the inauguration. And I don't care what political side anybody is on. All of us found ourselves paying attention to something with the inauguration. Everybody was. So it's not like there's going to be an inauguration every year. There's not. And I think we're all aware of that. But you take into the fact that every 4 years there could be, and you're competing with the NFL, and things just drag out. People lose interest when you don't have, like, when there's just one game over a 2-week period, Alex, people just kind of begin to just lose interest. Like, there was not, I didn't spend all day not being able to wait to watch the national championship. Like, I felt like the hype vibe had kind of dissipated. What did you think about all that?
I 100% agree. It did feel like it kind of drug out a little bit. And, that's something they'll have to balance with the playoff just because there's so many games you have to play. to get all those games in. And I do think there's maybe a little bit too much, I guess, dead period in between the games. And I think they just need to find a way to consolidate it a little bit. And I'm not sure what that means for the future. Obviously the playoffs not going away, and I'm in favor of the playoff. I like the 12 teams. I thought it added a lot of intrigue to the postseason, but I do feel like, we're sitting here, the game was January 20th, and it just feels like it was a little bit too late in the season. It's a long season. You got to think about it too. Those teams, especially who are deep in the playoffs, like they don't have much time now to turn around, and it's spring practice time for those guys. And so, and you think about the coaching staff too, throughout the playoffs, they're having to continue to recruit. And I mean, they have portal recruiting going on right in the middle of it. And now players from these two teams last night have to, if they want to enter the portal, they have time to do it too. So I think it just makes it to where it's a long, drawn out process. And I'm in favor of the playoffs. So I don't know what they can do. I think there's just a little bit of more, maybe consolidate some of the dead time that are in between the games, and play it in a week by week thing. And I think that's what they need to do going forward. But I think this is why, and to your point about the championship game being on a Monday night, like I've always been in favor of it continuing to be on a Saturday night, just like every other week has been throughout the college football season. I mean, just keep it. I mean, I'm not sure why it ever got to that point where it's on a Monday night or whatever. I think obviously just to make it where it's the only game on or anything on, but I've always been in favor of keeping it on Saturday nights.
Yeah, I'm confused as to, I mean, they claim ratings and this, that, and the other, Alex, but I mean, look, dude, I can tell you right now, every single human that I know that is a college football fan would be more than willing to plan their Saturday evening around the college football national championship.
Mm-hmm.
The bars would be happier. Business would be good. Tip your cap to the fans for once. I mean, you did this thing on Martin Luther King Day. You did it on Inauguration Day. You did it on a Monday. You did it 2 months after the season was over. I mean, I'm not like mad about it because I think that these people are genuinely trying to continue to improve the sport. Clearly, there are financial incentives and all this, and I think we all get that. But I do think that we're moving the ball down the field in the right direction. But like these things, that's not a difficult adjustment to be able to put the game on a Saturday night and not make fans have to take multiple days off of work if they want to go to the game, not have to stay up until midnight to watch the game when they have to get up the next morning and go into the office, et cetera, et cetera. To my point a minute ago, though, dude, I was more excited about the first round of the playoffs than I was about the national championship game. And it really had nothing to do with the teams that were in there. It was just the hype of the fact that, okay, we've gotten to the playoffs. Of course, all those games this year were on home fields, and that was really neat to see. But there was nothing yesterday leading into that game last night that I just couldn't wait for. And I think that that's just not good for the sport. Like, you spend all year hyping up how important the regular season is and the start of college football and the bowl games and the playoff games, all this stuff. And then you get to the pinnacle and it's just kind of a dud feeling. Didn't like that at all. All right. Well, let's leave that there. I need to hit a timeout. When we come back though, we're going to slide into some South Carolina stuff as the hype train. It's January and we're already talking about August, 216 days or something like that until the kickoff of college football. But we'll slide our conversation over towards the Gamecocks. We've got some hoops to get to. Of course, Carolina's got a big one tomorrow night. Gamecock Traditions is about to deliver something to my doorstep. I just got the notification that it'll be here today, thankfully, ahead of the snow. Well, you can do the same. If you head to GamecockTraditions.com or you just walk in and see them, it's the Village of Sandhill or out in Lexington. GamecockTraditions.com will bring whatever you buy right to your home.